Welcome to the show. You're listening to Hebrew Hits. I'm your host, Malya, and today I'm sitting down with Cantor Joel Kaplan, who is also the Executive Director of Yeshiva Darchei Torah, located in Far Rockaway, New York. Welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on. Good. I'm flattered to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
We moved to Far Rockaway in 1986. So we built, actually, I was in the real estate business and we built 22 homes. I live in one of my own homes. So by training, I'm an attorney, but I didn't end up practicing too much. Then we went into real estate. And then actually, I spent most of my career running not-for-profits. I ran the United Jewish Council on the East Side for about 17 years, and then On-Our-Way Learning Center, which is a preschool for developmentally delayed children on the Darchei campus. And finally, the last few years, I've been executive director of Darchei. I was president of Darchei years ago and have always have my boys here and very much affiliated with it.
Wow, you did so much and you still do so much. So how did you get started with Chazzanus?
So I grew up in Borough Park in Brooklyn. My father, Al Shalom, davened in a shul called Bethel, Borough Park, which is probably the world's most prestigious position for a chazan. He went for the Rabbi Shur, but the chazan then was Chazan Moshe Kusevitsky, who was regarded as the best chazan in the world then and probably even now, even till this day. And he, so one Simchas Torah, some of the boys were making believe they were in the choir. Even the choir wasn't singing that Shabbos with the chazan, with the chazan, and we were at the choir loft. They had a thing called the choir loft, where the choir was on top. It was very dramatic. The chazan was downstairs, and the choir was up there, and it had a blue and white, like a background, like the sky, and we had gowns. So someone said, why does your son make believe he's in the choir? Why don't you bring him and have him join the choir? And then choirs then often had young boys who were sang one of the parts, the alto part. And the other parts were sung by men, professional singers. So that's what happened. My father brought me to a rehearsal, and I joined the choir and became a soloist over the years. And I sang with the great chazan Moshe Kusevitsky, and that was a fantastic experience for me. What happened was also that there were then records called the Pirchei records, which a long time ago, but some of the songs you recognize, like Ani Ma'amin.
Yeah.
That's a famous song that we sing even now. And that was my solo on one of the records. So when people hear that song, I was the one that introduced it many, many years ago. I wasn't a member of Pirchei, but when they were doing the records, they wanted to get some good talent, I suppose. And they went to Bethel and they saw the kids that were in the choir, and they recruited us to sing on the records. So that was interesting. And then I continued to study Nussach HaTefillah and a little Chazzanus and voice, and that's how it started.
Before we get into Nussach HaTefillah, I just want to ask you, these choirs, was it only in Bethel, or did
No.
a lot of shuls have it?
A lot of shuls had choirs. A lot of shuls had chazanim. A lot of shuls had choirs. And for a whole generation of boys, it was an opportunity to start a musical career. A lot of chazanim started out singing in choirs, and now you don't have that now in shuls. Now instead you have Miami Boys Choir, Yeshiva Boys Choir, and my grandson is in New York Boys Choir. So that's a different breeding ground. But also it was a way for people to launch a musical career. So I studied voice, and I went to what's called the Lucy Moses School of Music. So I learned keyboard, and for a while I was playing keyboard at Chazzanus for the Messengers Orchestra, and I was part of the Or Chodosh singing group. So it was, it was an interesting and fascinating time especially for a young person.
At what age did you start singing?
So in the choir, about 9.
Wow.
And then 9, right? And for about 4 or 5 years, because then at about 13, 14, your voice a boy's voice starts to change. And unless you're careful, you may lose it, because if you use it too much when it's changing, it's very delicate, and sometimes that would mean the end of a career.
So what, you didn't sing for like a few years?
What you do is you sing, but you do it under you don't push it as much. You don't perform as much, and your voice, first of all, you can't sing really as much, because your voice, sometimes you can't control it almost, because it's undergoing as if it's a repair job. You can't drive the car when it's being repaired. So it's not being repaired, but it's changing. And when it's changing, you can't always control how it performs. So you have to.
That's very interesting.
Take a break.
That's very, very interesting. Wow.
The whole thing about voice, is so interesting, because, for example, in the opera, there's someone singing. There's 3,000 seat opera house. They're not amplified. There's no mics. There's a whole orchestra. There's a whole chorus. And the person that you hear is singing over everything. Now, you have to really know how to use your voice in an extraordinary way to be able to do that. And sometimes, in opera, they're acting it out. The person was stabbed, and he's lying on the floor, stabbed, and he's singing an aria over the whole orchestra.
With no microphone.
No microphone. Opera's no microphone.
Wow, I didn't know that. One more question about the choirs. Were these choirs that you sang in as a kid only on Shabbos and Yontiv, or was it like every day that there was a minyan, there was a choir?
No, not every day was a minyan. No. It was just a Shabbos Yontiv, and also we did concerts. A number of times a year. Yeah, it was interesting.
That must have been really fun to be a part of that.
It was. It's good for you. It's good for your self-confidence. You at that age, you're part of a choir. If you're a soloist, even more so. You would get paid a little bit as well. And for
really?
Yeah, for 11, 12-year-old, it would be a very nice experience. Also, we would do weddings, a lot of weddings, and there's a song that we don't see now at weddings, but Via Malya, where you would the boy would come down the aisle, raising his hands like this, blessing the chassan and kala.
Oh wow!
And you get paid for that as well. So yeah, it was interesting times.
Wow, that's amazing that you're a part of that. Well, I know you mentioned Nussach HaTefillah, and I know that you are a part of the Nussach HaTefillah Initiative. What exactly is the Nussach HaTefillah Initiative?
So forgetting about Chazzanus, because Chazzanus is really an elaboration of Nussach HaTefillah. Nussach HaTefillah is the way we as Jews are supposed to daven. We know about Nussach, meaning the words, but there's another dimension of davening, which is the melodies. And there's a certain Nussach, there's a certain musical melody or musical motif that you have to have, that you have to daven with. Why? First of all, it's the halacha, it's the Jewish law. The Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah in the Shulchan Aruch says that you should not change the minhagim of the community, afilu hanigunim. Even the nigunim you shouldn't change. Why? Because that's part of our Masorah. Our Masorah, our tradition, has it that for the best example that everyone will appreciate is Kol Nidre. Right? If you come to shul and you hear whoever the chazan or the shliach tzibur is, it's always like this: Kol nidre. Now let's say you come and you hear somebody get up to daven, and he says, I don't like that melody. I'm going to make my own melody up that I like better. You can't do that. You don't want him to do that. He's not allowed to do that. So there are certain davening parts of davening, Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, and Shlosh Regalim, and Shabbos, and even during the week, that have their own distinct musical motif, and that's the person. Only a person who knows that particular musical motif should be the one to daven. So it's what we expect to hear when we come to shul. We want to hear that, like on Yontiv, we heard Okel HaKodosh. You have a certain thing in your head if you go to shul regularly. And what I did was for Beth Shalom, where I'm the Chazan now, is I did, because we're not in shul yet again, but I did was we send out every week from the rabbis of the shul and myself, we send out something for the congregation to hear, or read. So I did was I recorded Kaddish, 8 different Kaddishim from around the year. The Kaddish, which you're supposed to hear Rosh Hashanah at night. Kaddish, you're supposed to hear Rosh Hashanah during the day. Yontiv, Tal, before Geshem, on Shabbos, etc. And I made a little contest. And if you have to identify, there were 8 of them that I recorded. I said, if you could identify which one belongs to which davening, then you'll win. So we had a winner.
Really?
Yeah, it was interesting. And it is, if you walk into shul and you had just fell asleep for 70 years and you woke up and you walked into shul and you said, I wonder what day it is today. And you walk in and depending on which Kaddish you hear, for example, you go, oh, it's Rosh Hashanah. Or, it's Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, that's for Tal, for Geshem. So, it was an interesting, and that's why Nussach HaTefillah is very important. Not Chazanas, not talking about Chazanas at all. Talking about how you should hear davening. And it doesn't mean that you can't. Sorry.
Yeah, why is it so important? I understand that, like, you're trying to keep the melodies the same, but why?
Well, because that's the halacha, that's the masorah of our people, that certain parts of the davening have to have a certain motif. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of other parts of davening where you have free reign. For example, Kel Adon, you could sing almost any melody. There's a great variety in Kedusha. You could sing a lot of different. There are certain rules, but not like Kol Nidre, for example. It has to be very precise. So you have flexibility in a lot of the davening at what melodies to sing, and people take advantage of it. They sing all kinds of different melodies. But the important part is that the parts that have to have a certain nusach, you have to adhere to the nusach. And that's because that's the tradition of our people for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so we have to maintain that.
Right. And so what is your role in Nussach HaTefillah with this initiative?
The initiative? So What happened was that the only Orthodox cantorial school, music school in America is in YU. It's called the Bell School of Jewish Music.
Okay.
And it was going through some changes, and that's where people could go to learn Nussach HaTefillah. And it was going through some changes, and I was nervous that even that one place was not going to have the same impact on people to learn Nussach HaTefillah. So I thought about it, and actually Rabbi Hain suggested, why don't you go to the OU? Because the OU has all the member congregations around the country, and those are the people that you want to train in those shuls to be able to lead the services, not as chazan, again, not about Chazanas, to lead the services with the proper nusach. And so we met with Alan Fagan, who's executive vice president, and right away he hopped it. He understood the importance of it, and we hired the OU hired Chaim David Burson, who's now in Kehillas Gesher in the city, a young guy who knows about social media, he knows about Chazzanus and Nussach HaTefillah, and that's what we did. We started to try to get as many resources so people could say, how do I sing, what's a Nussach for so-and-so, for this davening? And on the website, you have a resource so you can listen and say, aha, that's the way you sing this and this. That's the way you sing that.
This is available to anybody? Like anybody could go on the website and check it out?
Yeah, it's ou.org, and then put in Nussach HaTefillah search, and you'll come to that. We need to add more resources. The best way to really learn is to have a teacher, but it's not always so.
So you started the whole Nussach HaTefillah Initiative then?
Of the OU, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And now it's becoming a really big thing that not only like that one school, what was it again that you said?
The Bell School of Jewish Music. Philip the Bell School at Yeshiva University. Mm-hmm.
So not only them, but now everybody can hear all the tunes. And who records all the tunes?
So Chaim David Burson recorded some tunes. For example, what we did was we said, who becomes the Shliach Tzibur, who davens for the Amud without having been trained at all? You know who? Someone who, God forbid, lost a father or a mother, because the tradition is you say Kaddish, but also if you can, you should daven as the Chazan, as the Shliach Tzibur during the week. So you have people who may not have even gone to shul of the minyan to daven regularly, but now all of a sudden they're thrust into this role with not only going to shul, they're the ones that have to lead the services, and they don't. So again, with Alan Fagan, Chaim, and David Burson, we created a CD. Well, actually, it would say it's even what's the later generation. Excuse my like a stick that you put into the
flash
computer.
drive.
There you go. Flash drive, and with a whole array of questions and answers about what, if someone wants to daven, what they should know about, where to start, where to end, all kinds of frequently asked questions about, and we give it to anybody who's an Ovel. We say, here, this way you could learn how to daven during the week. And Chaim David Burson recorded the regular weekday shacharis, so people could hear in their head how it's supposed to sound. That's something also that the OU did. And that any shul could call up the OU and they'll get this kit sent to them.
That is incredible. When do you have time to do this? You sound like such a busy man, and you have time to do all this stuff.
The truth of the matter is Chaim David Burson is the hero, and Alan Fagan is the hero, because they were, Chaim David is the one who has the talent, and Alan Fagan is the one who recognized the need for it and followed up on it right away. So we're thankful to him.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, as a chazan, do you have to practice or train your voice even today?
Yes.
So what goes into that behind the scenes?
I've been taking voice lessons at least once a week for the last 45 plus years.
Wow.
People say, why do you have to take voice lessons? Don't you know it yet?
Right.
But the answer is that you, at some point, there's two answers. One is that you always want to build stamina. You always want to build range. You always want to build your ability to learn a new piece, a new selection. You want to get coached in how you learn that piece. Mm-hmm. But besides that, two other things. One is, why do baseball players, Major League Baseball players, why do you have a hitting coach and a pitching coach and a conditioning coach? They're at the top of their game.
Right.
Tennis players, the top tennis players, they have all kinds of coaches. Why? Why do they need the coaches? Because you want to make, first of all, there's always a room to improve. And it's hard to improve subjectively. You need someone to guide you. And also, if you start making mistakes, you may not catch it.
Oh,
And you make one little mistake, and then it takes you off, veers you off where you're supposed to be. So that's why you always have voice teachers, and you always have hitting coaches.
how did you decide who your voice coach would be?
I've had the same voice coach for the last 35 years. Same one that Avram Fried goes to, the same one that many other of the singers that we recognize nowadays all go to. His name is Hirsch Einhorn, and he understands the voice medically, because sometimes people have issues with their voice, a polyp or a nodule, and he knows exactly how to work that out, and he understands the medicine of it, and he understands the techniques of it. So that's what we do. And also, as you get older, like myself, sometimes the voice starts to wobble, and he's very much into making sure that it doesn't happen. You have to adjust the technique so that doesn't happen. And if you don't, then the voice, you'll say, oh, sounds like an old man. When I sing, I hope I don't sound like an old man.
Well, I don't think you do. I had no idea that went into like Chazzanus. That I'm assuming now a lot of Chazans out there actually get voice lessons.
Yes.
I didn't even know that.
Yes. Almost all of them have access to a teacher. They may not go as regularly as they should or they want to, but they all have had, they all have had and have voice training. Yeah.
Wow. So being a Chazan, can you share some of your favorite moments?
I suppose my favorite moment is when someone comes over to me after davening and says, Chazan, you made me cry.
Wow.
Or you really inspired me. Or now I understand the davening much better. I also enjoyed, the songs as well. But that's really what it's about. That's what we're there for, to inspire people, and that's usually the best.
The best feeling of being a Chazan.
Yeah.
It's amazing how powerful a voice could be. Well, have you been a Chazan in any other places besides for Beth Shalom?
Yeah, I started when I was 19. I was a Chazan for 2 years in 2 different shuls, just for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur to start out. In fact, I was a Chazan in Nachum Siegel's father's shul.
Really?
Siegel, right. And then I was 21. I was the Chazan in Bradley Beach, New Jersey, once a month in all the holidays. And then I became the Chazan in Ocean Avenue Jewish Center in Brooklyn for 10 years. Then we moved out here, and I was going back to Ocean Avenue every other week, but that wasn't a long-term situation. But if you're a Chazan, you like to be in a big shul. So I went to the white shul here, and they asked me to daven a couple of times. And then finally they said, you know what? Would you want to be the Chazan here? I said, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I was there for 15 years.
Wow.
Right.
My gosh.
And then 17 years ago, my predecessor in Beth Shalom, Chazan Ehrlich, became ill, and the shul was looking for another Chazan, and here I am, 17 years later.
So you left the white shul. Was it?
Cool.
And you still kept all the same tunes from the white shul, from all the shuls?
Well, we're always looking for new tunes that fit the Nussach.
Right.
So and in terms of Hallel, we're looking for new tunes. In terms of Kedushas, looking for new tunes. In terms of Kel Adon, we're looking for new tunes. And so what we've done is, I'm always looking for new tunes, but besides that, we have some colleagues on the west side, Chazan Zevi Muller, Chaim David Burson, and Yankee Lemmer. They're very fine Chazanim in the Upper West Side. And we shared the tunes that we use. We traded around so that we had more ideas for tunes. What works for them in their shul may work for me also in Beth Shalom. So we did that, and it was.
You switch up to, like in Beth Shalom, you switch up tunes like yearly?
Yes. I have let's say for Kedushas, I have probably about 6 or 7 for each paragraph, 6 or 7 different tunes. Some I use more often than others. but they're all generally sing along, and so that's not really Chazanus-y, it's more congregational singing rather than Chazanas. Chazanas is nowadays it's, except in certain shuls, it's more for the concerts. Except if you're a great Chazan like Chazan Helfgott, who's in Parky Synagogue, or Chazan Hirschdick, who's in the Hamptons, they're doing more Chazanas pieces.
Oh, wow.
And people come to hear that. In most of the other shuls, timing is always an issue. What time are we getting out? Don't repeat words, etc., etc. So it's evolved, the Chazanas. But again, Nussach HaTefillah is has to underline everything,
Right, and that has to stay the same. Do you have any advice for up-and-coming Chazanim?
Yes. The advice is study, and there are people to study from, and try to get as much Amud experience. In other words, if they ask you to daven for the Amud, take them up on it as much as you can. There's no substitute for that kind of experience. And not to say, oh, I'm not ready yet, or try, because the more times you actually daven, the better you'll get.
And could anybody become a chazan like at any age, or do you advise people who have been singing for a while to really get into chazanas?
Well, again, if their interest is in davening for the Amud, so then it doesn't matter what age. It's a little harder when you're a little older. But again, the first thing you have to learn is Nussach HaTefillah. And that's less challenging than singing a piece of Chazanas. A piece of Chazanas is a much more challenging, was more challenging than just saying the Nussach HaTefillah. Yeah.
Well, before we go, I've got one more question to ask you.
Sure.
This is a fun question.
Okay.
Well, are you excited? Well, has your life as a chazan taken you to any cool places or any cool events?
Yeah, actually, yes. I did the national anthem twice in Shea Stadium. That was
really
when the Mets
wow.
were in Shea. And takes me to a lot of different dinners where I sing. Obviously, every year we have a concert with Chazan Helfgott, who's the best Chazan in the whole world, in Beth Shalom, and we always have another Chazan, so the three of us in the choir sing. So that's always. But I suppose our highlight was when we had a Cantorial Council of America convention in Israel a number of years ago, and we spent the whole week with seminars learning, about Nussach or there we go again. But we also had a concert every night in a different place. In Tel Aviv, we had a concert, and in Yad Vashem and the great synagogue. And that was really a very cool experience for all of us. Yeah.
That's very cool. So I'm very excited about the Shea Stadium thing.
Yeah, you were too. Yeah.
Did you have to apply to do that, or like how did you get there?
It was Jewish Heritage Day,
okay.
And so the Jewish Community Relations Council that was involved with it knew that I was a chazan. They asked me to sing. So the first time I did, so everyone was waiting, to hear me from all my friends, etc. If you weren't there, you could figure listen on the radio. The problem was on the radio, instead of them listening to you, the radio audience listening to you, they go to a commercial. They don't need to hear Joel Kaplan sing the anthem. So all my friends, but what they did was the Mets, they give you a CD, because they know that it's, for you, it's a big thing, and they give you a CD of you singing it. So therefore, it was, I have, and the first time, I suppose this is they asked how many tickets I need from my immediate family. So I said, I need 14. I have a large family, B'lian Hara. So they said, no, for your immediate family. So I said, oh, I forgot, my mother or something. So I said 15. you know. The next time they realized, they said, we have 4 tickets for you. And that was what it was.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
But on the scoreboard, you saw Cantor Joel, the head, Cantor Joel Kaplan, Congregation Beth Shalom. So it was pretty cool.
That is so cool. Were you nervous at all?
I was nervous because what they do is you have to come like 3 hours earlier.
Wow.
And they want you to go through it. They want to show you where you're going to stand. And the person tells you, okay, when I do like this, you start to sing. And, I did it. And they wanted to make sure that I suppose I wouldn't freeze. They want to know if you want to have it so there's a delay or no delay in your ear. I was thinking, what happens if when he does this, you do freeze? What do they do?
Right.
I don't know. I didn't ask him, but I thought about it. I suppose they probably have a backup. They push a button and there's somebody else recorded singing it. But
oh my gosh,
it was a cool experience.
That is very cool. And can I find that online anywhere, or you can't find it?
I didn't see it online. I have to look for the CD. I haven't listened to it in a while, but it was it was good. It was a nice experience.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me. That was Cantor Joel Kaplan. I really appreciate you being here with me today. Any last thing you want to say before we go?
My pleasure, and thank you so much. You have a great show. I listen to your other shows, and it's really terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much.